Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to highlight the Sony PS-B80, a really remarkable turntable, both for what it is, its performance and other characteristics, as well as what it represents in the history of turntable evolution. So Sony introduced this in 1978 and is very much a high-end model introducing new technology to the industry. Just as a point of reference, in 1979, it was available in the United States at a cost of $1,800. So that was about twice as much as the next highest cost turntable available at that time. So certainly was marketed as a high-end unit. Its main feature being the application of technology to solve really critical issues relating to analog music reproduction. In this case, by applying electronic damping to the problem of tone arm resonance. And let's go ahead and open it up. So the damping and resonance, it's really pretty simple concept. But a lot of complex factors go into it. So the tone arm is designed so that it moves freely with the in the groove as the record plays. At the same time, your stylus, your needle is vibrating along with the music, and you don't want those vibrations being essentially transmitting into the tone arm itself. You don't want the tone arm vibrating and shaking along with the music. Now there is a resonance point at which that the whole system kind of acts together, and that resonance can become very high. And the goal is to keep that resonance out of the audio spectrum, typically between 7 hertz and 13 hertz. But not to get too much into that, one of the solutions to this problem is just to increase the mass of your tone arm. But the problem is, you increase mass, the inertia helps the tone arm not to pick up those vibrations, but then it also becomes more difficult to track your record. So a solution that had been used really, I believe, probably for at least a couple decades was some type of damping, typically with a highly viscous or thick fluid like a damping grease, just to suppress those vibrations. Typically the grease would be applied somewhere in a well, at the base or in the tone arm somewhere. So the challenge with that is that damping grease, it's always the same regardless of how much damping may actually be needed, depending on what's going on with the music. So Sony's solution, and why they call this a Biotracer, is that the damping is electronically applied, and it's applied in response to how much is needed by the music. So inside the tone arm there are electromagnets, both sensing and applying damping in the horizontal. Those are actually under the deck, as well as the vertical, which are inside the tone arm. So really a remarkable and brilliant use of technology to solve this problem, and a very real benefit. Probably most noticeable in the area of stereo separation and imaging, but also reduced distortion and improved tracking. So this turntable, let's see, maybe we'll jump into a demo so we talk about the functions as we so you can see the functions as we talk about them. So the first thing, when you power on the table, if you pay attention, the tone arm is when powered off is and sitting up, and when you power on it auto balances in a horizontal plane. Okay, so that's the first thing the turntable is doing, is it's auto balancing based on the weight of the cartridge. So the tone arm senses the weight of cartridge and then calculates the amount of force that is is necessary to oppose that weight and keep the tone arm in balance. And then it uses that weight when it's playing the record, so that the tone arm is always in balance. Essentially, it has a counteracting force to balance the tone arm, and then electronically applies the stylus force. So the interesting thing is that once you put these electromagnets into the system, then you can use them for all kinds of things. So, for instance, auto balance and stylus force, we talked about those already. Those are your vertical magnets. For the horizontal area, you can do things like use them for moving the tone arm. You can use them for applying anti-skate. So, for instance, on this table, when you adjust the stylus force, you're also adjusting the anti-skate, and that is just the opposing force to the natural tendency of the tone arm to want to, or the force that's pushing the tone arm towards the center of the record, which is just related to kind of the offset geometry of the tone arm. Okay, so you get the damping, you get the auto balance, you get the movement, you get things like stylus force. So it was really, I think, brilliant on the part of Sony. They really, this is the first of this type of deck ever made and available, and Sony really knocked it out of the park with this one. And so intended to be a high-end unit, and sold as a high-end unit, so the build quality is very, very good. Quality of the tone arm, platter of the motor, everything is very, very nice, very nicely built. Okay, so let's actually, I'm going to take the record off and let's hit start and see what happens. So if there's no record, then it won't play. And what's happening there is this tower here has infrared diodes in it, light LEDs, and that's shining through slits in the platter, here, here, and here. And there's 3 slits at each location. So it's essentially just telling the deck, or the deck sensing, do I have a record, and what size is that record? Is it 10, 12, or 7 inch? So we have a record, so let's hit play. So I'm going to put the stylus force up a bit for this cartridge. This classical record has very long lead-in grooves. Interesting. A lot of classical records were made that way, which is kind of nice. Very quiet record as well. Sounds very nice. And just a note, the point of this demo is not to demonstrate the sound quality, which is just through my phone camera. But let's look now. We got your arm movement. We have the cueing up and down. Another thing we have is motor on and off. So say while it's playing, you could, it's probably more for, say, a broadcast or studio environment. You could cue up a song and then have it ready to play, and then go ahead and play. You notice also the platter has electronic braking, so it comes to a stop fairly quickly, and then it comes up to speed very quickly as well. So nice solid high torque direct drive motor. Now, we covered most of the functions here. Let's cover the functions that we have here on the other side. So after the power switch, you have cleaner button, and I think this is pretty unique. I think some other tables had some brushes and would clean themselves as maybe the tone arm went back to rest. This one, the cartridge assembly moves down, and a series of 4 soft brushes are circulating inside this housing and just properly brushing the record, the stylus rather, from you know, the back to front. And generally after the cleaner application, I'll move the tone arm back so it can auto balance again. So each time the tone arm goes back to rest, it goes through the auto balance procedure, so that if I did say at this point change the cartridge, I could move it away and then back to rest, and then it would auto balance again. So in addition to all those features, it does also then have a mechanical adjustment here at the base of the tone arm for VTA, or vertical tracking angle. That's just the height of the tone arm at its base, which then changes the angle of your stylus on the record. Generally, you want the tone arm to be in a horizontal position, but cartridges were never standardized, you know, head shells, so they could be shorter or taller. So that helps. That's another thing that you can dial in. Now, it's another thing that's special about this table in terms of these adjustments. It's really stable as kind of a tweaker's delight here, because you have your stylus force and your vertical tracking that you can adjust on the fly, meaning while the record's playing. So, for instance, we can show that. Now this happens to be set for 2.6 grams, just in the range of what this cartridge requires. But while it's playing, I could tweak that a little bit. I mean, I could put it anywhere really, but I could move it a little higher and see if I like that. I could move it a little lower and see if I like that. So it's really not only a tweaker's delight, or if you just like the minimum of fuss, then quickly able to get to a good position without a whole lot of iteration, making a change, sitting back, listening, making a change. You know, you can do it while it's playing, which is very nice. So this table, let's go ahead and hit some of the other features here. So hit the cleaner. After that, you have the speed. It's 45 or 33. Now this you need to manually select. While the table will choose the size for you based on the record that's there, you do need to select your speed manually. And these will get into these kind of together as a group. So you have repeat and then two memory positions or buttons, and these memorize a lead-in position and a return position. So say, let's just go somewhere on the record and start playing. Now let's say you get a phone call and you need to pause for a minute. You could just raise it and just leave it spinning like that, or you could memorize your lead-in position and then just return it to rest. And then when you're ready to play again, just go back and you've memorized your lead-in position. So as long as that's memorized and the table is on, I could hit the button and turn that off. And the other thing is, I'll hit return now. You could also memorize a return position. So that would be the point at which the tone arm picks up and returns to rest. So we can demonstrate that. And let's demonstrate that as in addition to the repeat. So the repeat is somewhat unique on this table in that most tables, if they have a repeat, it's either no repeat at all or infinite repeat. This one, depending on how many times you press the button, is how many repeats you get, up to 15. If you pressed it 16 times, you go back to 0. So let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead, we'll just press that 3 times. I don't know if we'll take that much time in the video, but we can at least watch it, you know, come in, start. Now, essentially what it has is, you know, we got a little technical here, but it has, there's a shutter under there with a number of, a lot of very fine slits. And that's, depending on, the table is at all times paying attention to where the tone arm is based on those slits, and obviously they go, you know, go through, a light passes through those slits and then feeds the position back to the microprocessor. So For instance, in that case, I probably just went like one slit over. But you know, you could if there was a song in the beginning you didn't like, you could just start later in the record and even repeat that way. You could have the record stop before it gets to the last song, or really anyway, you know, repeat songs in the middle, or as long as it's concentric, you have a lead in and you have a return. So, you know, pretty unique feature, very unique, I think, but probably not something that's going to be used a whole lot. But you know, Sony just kind of took advantage of what they were building here and put that in there. So let's do this. We'll turn off the deck and let's demonstrate swapping cartridges. So how, I mean, this, for folks who like to swap cartridges, this is just one of the ultimate tables. So we swapped the cartridge. This one was about, I believe we're coming up to about, this is about 17 or 18 grams. And this one's in the range of about, I think it's about 14.8 grams. So there's a definite difference between these. And in any table that's well balanced, it's going to, it wouldn't balance. Even, you know, it has to be exactly the same. So it auto balanced with the lighter cartridge. And then, of course, then we can make any other adjustments. Typically, you would need to change your stylus force. In this case, I'm changing it to 1.8, which works well with this cartridge. And then you're pretty much ready to go. You could adjust the VTA if you want. It does have a scale at the base of the tone arm, so when you move that, you could either, you know, write down or memorize that position, or you could just sight across the turntable. There's also some, you know, sophisticated tools available if you want to actually like take pictures of the stylus and how it's contacting the record and all that. Like anything with this hobby, you can go as deep as you want. Let's do one more thing. And while we're getting this prep, we'll just talk a little bit about the restoration. So I restore this table, and really from the standpoint of everything that could or should be done to get it back to top performance, both you know, its audio performance, as well as how it looks and how it feels to use. So everything from the standpoint of you know, anything that's mechanical, your touch, the platter, the tone arm, that VTA adjustment, all the buttons, all that's disassembled and cleaned, reassembled with correct lubricants. Next, I'd say most important thing with this table is to run through the calibration. So number of calibrations, it's got 14 trimmers for tone arm functions, both vertical and horizontal, all the different things that it's doing in terms of the damping, in terms of the movement, in terms of the auto balance. And then it has six trimmers related to the motor, like the motor, the speed, the servo, the gain, the amplitude, different number of different adjustments. If you work through those adjustments, even if the table, you know, seems to be working properly, as you work those adjustments, you'll be able to identify any faults that this table may have. So any performance or any other faults in this table were all identified and corrected, and then run through that calibration, each step of that calibration, and then recap the table as well. So all the electrolytic capacitors have been replaced, and I believe there's 56 of them in this deck. So quite a bit going on. And then finally, just tweak the table, tweak those calibrations again after replacing the capacitors, just to make sure everything's still in good shape. And you know, then just enjoy it, play it, make sure everything's good. This table does have its original 45 adapter. It's a brushed aluminum, so Sony used this on several of their high-end models, came with that adapter. So now what we'll do is we'll just demo playing a 7-inch 45. So manually select 45 and then just press start. thing is these Biotracer tables, or any of the tables that use the this damping, the servo technology. So I'll just let a little of that play just to avoid a copyright strike. But these tables are so smooth. So these servo controlled tables with the damping, when they use that for the movement, any of these fully automatics, and Sony introduced the technology, but then JVC and Denon used it for several years, and really represented pretty much the height of turntable development until all this was essentially swept away by the introduction of the CD in 1983. Although Denon, I understand, kept some of those decks into production, and typically they were the high-end offerings by these companies. They kept some of those in production even into the early 90s. So very, very easy to use, very pleasure to use. Just that buttery smooth operation, and from the standpoint of audio performance, it's just superb. There is a article, I believe it's Audio Magazine in 1980. Wasn't this deck, but the one of the next generation, the Sony PS-X75, where they put it through the paces. And back then they would do all the technical tests, and rumble, isolation, relating to the plinth and motor, all relating to the tone arm, how well it's dampening resonance, distortion, frequency response, on, and it was really the best that they had measured to date, and that was 1980. So again, a really special table. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I certainly enjoyed making it, and have a great day. Thank you.